Welcome to Meeting with the Mayor. I'm Pat O Melia. This is a special presentation of the City Show. We started this prior to the pandemic, and then the pandemic came, so that was the end of Meeting with the Mayor. So we're restarting it again, and as we did the last time, our guest is the Mayor of Jersey City, Stephen Fulop.
How are you?
There he is. Hey, Mayor.
Hey,
how's the wife
good to
and
see you,
kids?
Pat. Everybody's good, thank God. Everybody's healthy. Things are okay.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen some footage of your son. He's growing like a weed.
You know, yeah, time flies. He's 3, and my daughter is 1.5, and time moves fast, but it's like a really fun age, and I try to enjoy every moment that I have with him.
Oh, make sure you do that. Don't make the mistakes I did, working too hard and forgetting about the kids. How do they get along, brother and sister? He big brother yet?
No, it's they could work on improving the brother-sister relationship. I mean, we're trying our best to get my son in a better place on that, but he'll eventually get there. But, you know, look, it's 3-in-1 is a lot of fun. And the great thing about the job that I have today is I have an opportunity to see them all the time and take him to school and appreciate every moment, because I do recognize these kids grow up pretty fast.
That's amazing that he's 3 years old already. You know, just if it really,
Yeah.
It seems like it was like yesterday he was born. Let's get to the business at hand. Twitter. What do you think of the Twitter deal? Elon Musk buying it outright.
I don't have much of an opinion. I don't think it's going to impact me much one way or the other. I tend to think that more transparency and more free speech is a good thing. And we'll see how it plays out. But it's an amazing thing that you have somebody in today's world that could spend that type of money. And you got to question whether that's healthy for society, obviously. But at the end of the day, how's it going to impact me? Probably a minimal amount.
Well, you know, I think all the communication places now are controlled by one guy, whether it's Facebook with Zuckerman, Bezos with the Washington Post, and Amazon. I forget who the name of the guy that runs Alphabet now. But there's always that one individual. It's different than it was in the media world of 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, you got a financial background.
It's probably not a healthy thing.
Did he do this in cash?
No, I don't think he did this in cash. I don't think he's sitting on $44 billion in cash. I'm pretty sure that that's not the case. But that said, it's definitely not a healthy thing to have, you know, all of these major media outlets controlled by just a handful of super, super wealthy people that have a disproportionate amount of wealth relative to regular people. And they're growing and acquiring more things, and their wealth has exponentially increased over the pandemic. And those are all reasons to be concerned for American society and the world as a whole. But those are other conversations. Your question was about Twitter. And I'll just say that, you know, we'll see how it goes. But, you know, my account isn't going anywhere. I don't expect it to change much. Maybe get a few extra
Twitter?
followers. Nice. What was that?
You didn't leave Twitter? People were leaving today.
No, I'm not going to leave Twitter. I mean, Twitter is another means of communication that I find pretty important, and we'll see where it goes. You know, we have 40,000 plus followers on that, and it's a good opportunity for me to publicize things that I'm doing or things that are important to me.
Now, before we get into Jersey City issues, you mentioned about individuals owning the media outlets. Do you see someday where like a Teddy Roosevelt occurs, where he breaks up the trust like he did with Standard Oil and, you know, the railroads in the old days?
I do. I think that you're quickly approaching a world where there's major monopolies and difficult to compete. You know, like who can compete with Amazon today, or Facebook, Meta, whatever they call it themselves, or Alphabet? I mean, you think about the disproportionate control that those companies have, and you would be a fool not to be alarmed by it. The barriers to entry there are very, very high, and competition tends to be a good thing, and the thing that ultimately drives innovation and progress in our society. So it's hard to not think that at some point the government's going to take a more stringent look at some of those companies and see, you know, where there could be meaningful separations to create more competition, because today just competition doesn't exist.
No, no. Yeah, there's just a few people that are controlling it all. You know, it's amazing. Jeff Bezos divorced about a year ago. He divorced, and he was still the richest man in the world. His ex-wife became the richest woman in the world. Now, you're talking some real money if you can get divorced and still be the richest person in the world. Quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. But anyway, you want to talk a little bit about Jersey City?
Well, that's what. Also, you're a keynote speaker coming up with the Ukrainian refugees. Is Jersey City? It's a sanctuary city, Jersey City. Is Jersey City stepping up again to assist the Ukrainian refugees?
We have the best immigrant affairs office in New Jersey, and one of the best in the country. It's one of the few, if not the only one, that's federally accredited. We started that office under my administration. We hired a great director there, and they've done some meaningful work during times that are less complicated, just helping with normal citizenship. And in the last year, whether it be Afghanistan or the Ukraine, there's no shortage of people that need help and that are coming to this country in dire situations. And the immigration laws in the United States are complicated and difficult. And so having a city agency is important. I'm the keynote speaker on Thursday. And we're just going to highlight some of the good work that Jersey City has done over the years and how we're going to continue doing that.
Well, we actually have a Ukrainian center here in Jersey City up on Oakland Avenue.
We do. We have a Ukrainian center, and we have the Ukrainian center that was major investors in some of the larger real estate deals downtown going back decades prior to the downtown that you know today. So if you think about a building, let's say like 100 Montgomery, which is a block away from City Hall, the original investors were affiliates of Paco and the Ukrainian center. Or if you think about Via Barinquin and their board members, the Ukrainian center had major influence there as well. So, you know, Jersey City's always been a city of immigrants. It's changed who those immigrants are over time, but we still are a city of immigrants. And the Ukrainian community is no different. They've been early investors and early believers in Jersey City.
All right, let's break for commercial, and we'll pick it up with the one of your favorite topics, the school budget. All right, you're watching Meeting with the Mayor. We'll be right back. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net. Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in one of our many high-rise towers. With amenities such as the on-site Newport Path, light rail, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Kohl's, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams and Acme Supermarket are just outside your front door. A health and fitness center, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. Enjoy the New York skyline from our waterfront and various parks. Manhattan is just one pass stop away, or quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Looking to visit? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. For more information, visit us at newportnj.com. Make lasting memories to cherish forever. It's incredible. It's you, Newport. Live like you want.
We're back. Pat O'Melia here, and you're watching Meeting with the Mayor. And our guest today is the Mayor of Jersey City, Stephen Fulop. Stephen?
How are you, Pat? Good to be back.
We did enough with this, enough softballs. Let's get to the meat of Jersey City here. The school budget.
Yeah.
We just got hit with a $1,600 tax hike. This on top
Yep.
of last year's $1,000 tax hike that you managed to cover with the city municipal budget and various COVID funds. That's not possible this year. So in essence, we're looking at a $2,600 tax hike. What does the mayor of Jersey City say?
Well, look, I mean, I've really been vocal about the fact that I have some real concerns about, how the process is done and what are we really getting for all that money that we invest. At some point, you got to ask yourself, is more money really the solution to just a better education, or are there other parts of the conversation that need to be addressed? When you look at the budget today, you're spending close to $31,000 for an education per child here in Jersey City, with the majority of the schools failing based on federal and state standards. And over the last couple of years, where they've repeatedly raised taxes in a significant way, the question is, what have we gotten for that money? And taxpayers should be asking, and the Board of Ed should be accountable. I mean, I have my concerns on this. And I just want to close by saying that there hasn't been an administration in recent times, decades upon decades, that has invested more in the schools beyond just basic dollars amount. And we've done more on the shared services front. We've covered costs with the MUA that weren't the traditional city's responsibility, but the school neglected. And we've built more seats than any administration before, whether it's Explore 2000, the middle school that we partnered with the county, or Liberty Science High School, which is about to open, or the PS16 Annex, which serves hundreds of kids, or facilitating more charter school construction. Our view has been we're looking to expand school opportunities here in Jersey City, but again, reasonable questions and accountability are important.
Mayor, we're knocking on almost a $1 billion school budget.
Yeah.
$1 billion. We're at $974 million as it stands now. There are 39 public schools in Jersey City, according to Google. That comes out to almost $25 million for each one of those schools per year.
Yeah, and I would point out,
right.
Pat, the math is what the math is. And I would point out one additional part is that enrollment in the school system, in the Jersey City public school system, is declining. It's not increasing. Yet you have the budget increasing exponentially. And those are real questions that the public should be asking: how and why? And if we're putting that type of money into the school system, we all believe that kids should have a world-class education. Are we actually achieving that? And why are we not when we're not? And so those are really some of the things that I've raised. And the Board of Education ultimately can do taxes and raise them as they please. That's the way the government is structured here. But it doesn't mean that me or you as a resident of Jersey City need to accept it blindly without asking for accountability.
Enrollment in the Jersey City schools. According to Google, again, there are 29,113 students enrolled in Jersey City public schools. The number, divide that by 974 million, comes out to $33,500 per student.
Yeah.
Tom's River, I host a television show for Tom's River. It costs them about $16,000 per student. And they got a fine school system. Yeah, kids go to college, they become doctors, whatever.
Yeah.
How can it be such that it's more than double than a municipality that's an hour away?
I'm not going to tell you what the right number is. I think the right number is probably somewhere in between those, as we have, English as a second language more frequently here in Jersey City. We have poverty levels that are higher than Tom's River, more complicated city. All those things factor in, but should it be double? If you're spending $33,000 or $31,000 per student, and that's equivalent to some of the best private schools' tuitions in the state, you have to ask yourself, are we getting that type of equivalent on the education front for the same child? And if we're not, you got to ask why. And so when you look at comparative other school districts, there's a lot to ask about in Jersey City about what are we doing and where's the accountability. Every single year over the last 4 or 5 years, you've seen massive tax increases. And what's frustrating is they point to everybody else but themselves. First, it was the city didn't give us the tax abatement money. And we would say, well, the city hasn't done tax abatements in years. That they would say, well, the state's cutting our funding. And we would say, well, that's not a surprise. You've known about that for 4 or 5 years. Then they would say, well, we're suing the state and we're going to try and get that money back. And then we would say, but you're undermining your lawsuit with the decisions you're making on raising taxes because it's counter to your lawsuit. So it just begs a lot of questions about really the direction and the leadership there.
Have they exposed the books to you? Have they exposed it to the city of Jersey City? The
No,
actual
I mean,
forensic accounting, where this money goes?
The Board of Education is an independently elected body, and the superintendent is appointed by the Board of Education elected members. So the mayor and council have no oversight over that any more than you do. And so while we can ask and be concerned, they haven't showed us anything additional to what they show you. There's not a lack of the city reaching out and trying to be helpful. So we constantly are asking for ways that we could work together, exploring different remedies, making suggestions. But it's on the Board of Education to ultimately make those decisions, and more often than not, they choose not to. So it's frustrating for us because the people that end up suffering the most under these decisions are the same people that they say are the most important for them to be able to educate. That's the most vulnerable of our communities. When you raise taxes $2,600, a homeowner in any community is going to struggle to pay that, and a renter in most of the low-rise buildings cannot be protected from the landlord passing that rent or tax increase onto the renter because New Jersey state laws don't allow any sort of rent control for 4 units or less type buildings. So, there's real challenges and real decision implications from what they're doing.
You are the mayor of Jersey City. Most residents of Jersey City, when they get the tax bill, they're not analyzing it that way. So, well, the municipal budget is so much, the county is here, and the city, the school. They look at you. This is the bill I got from the mayor. We look to the mayor to protect us. You are trying to make affordable housing in Jersey City. There is no affordable housing in Jersey City when you're jacking up the taxes $2,600 a year. And listen, next year it will be $1 billion budget, and it's going to be more on the tax people. You're going to keep taxing. There is no affordability. What are you going to do? How are you protecting us?
Well, let me say this. The first thing I could do is be vocal about where we stand and make sure that the public understands it. The second thing is I have the ability to articulate clearly when they receive those taxes and explain to people how their tax bill is broken down. And you need to give people credit that they're more sophisticated than often people think, that they don't understand the tax bill. You're wrong. They do. They understand that there's parts from the county and parts from the state and parts from the city and parts from the Board of Education. And we explain that to them. And, along the way, the public needs to be asking questions on why is the Board of Education doing this? Who's advocating for those tax increases? Do the advocates who are saying and most vocal about increasing taxes, do they actually live here? Often the answer is no. Do they actually send their kids to the public school system here? The answer is often no. So you have to ask a lot of these questions, and when you start peeling back the layers of the audience, you realize this is not really something that's helpful for the public, and they should be asking for more accountability instead of just saying $2,600 tax increases are acceptable.
Well, let me break for commercial, and we'll pick this up on the flip side. You're watching Meeting with the Mayor. Our guest is Mayor Stephen Fulop. We'll be right back.
Panapinto Properties, Jersey City, shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces and addresses your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintodevelopment.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Stevens Jersey City Ford, certified parts and service located at Route 440 and Communipaw Ave, is your #1 source for Ford and Lincoln automotive needs. We use certified Ford Motorcraft products to keep your Ford running in top shape. Motorcraft parts are backed with the Ford warranty, which includes a 2-year unlimited mileage guarantee. Our team will have the right Motorcraft part to ensure the best performance from your Ford or Lincoln. You can order in person at the parts counter or online. Let us help keep your Ford or Lincoln in the best shape at Stevens Jersey City Ford.
Good Friend Self Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer a Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunnelly Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self-Storage. Let us be your good friend.
This thing rips! Oh, it is so quick. There's a lot of punch packed into this Bronco Sport. It's got a ton of horsepower. I love it. All right, now we're getting hairy. Now we're getting the fun stuff. Yeah. I like how we can get over or around almost anything.
Yeah, I dig your ride. I super dig it. It's gonna be a good day.
We're back. You're watching Meeting with the Mayor. I'm Pat O Melia, and that guy is the mayor of Jersey City, Stephen Fulop. Mayor, before we move to the next topic, what is your plan to make changes at the Board of Education? You just can't sit back and say, it's elected board, I can't do anything. Like I said, there's no affordability in Jersey City at the rate we're going. Mayor.
Look, I think the most important thing, and I'm supportive of this, is to change the elections back from November to when they were previously in April. Now, I was part of the advocacy to change the elections from April to November. And the reason I did that was that New Jersey, for the first time, allowed Board of Education elections in November. And I thought people were more programmed to vote in November as opposed to April, so we'd get more voter engagement. So we tried it. And, you know, the best governments and the most efficient governments are willing to try new things, experiment with different platforms and policies, and acknowledge the fact when something's a success or failure. What we saw with moving the elections from April to November is, yes, more people come out to vote in November. However, they aren't necessarily voting for the Board of Education. There's a huge drop-off between the people that vote for governor to mayor to the Board of Education. Often people don't even stay in the booth to fill out the Board of Education. So that part of our trial or experiment or advocacy didn't really work. The second part to be concerned about is the unintended consequences. When the state legislation was enacted and allowed people to move their elections from April to November, the also byproduct or agreement was that the public would no longer have the ability to vote on the budget. It would just be the elected Board of Education. And the reason that the state did that was because the timing wouldn't allow for approval of a budget in November after the year's already passed. So when we moved it, we eliminated the public's ability to approve or reject the Board of Education budget. If the elections were to go back to April, you would have a day dedicated to the Board of Education elections. The voter turnout of actually voters that are engaged with the Board of Education would be relatively similar. We've learned this. And most importantly, the public could then accept or reject these sort of tax increases. And that's really the most important solution. And we're speaking to the City Council about it, and I'm hopeful that they're willing to support it.
Can we do it in 2022, or do we wait for 2023?
They'd have to pass it now, and they'd have to be on the budget now in 2023. I suggested it to them in January of 2022, and there wasn't an appetite. And then perhaps after this sort of tax increase, there's the willingness to change it from the council side. But it really is something from the council that I have to advocate for, and we're trying our best to be vocal on it.
All right, let's move on. Off-duty cops and weed. I heard you on NJ 101.5 with Bill Spadia.
Yeah.
I guess you're a loyal listener.
I don't know if I'm a loyal listener. You mentioned to me, or other people mentioned, that I was a topic of conversation that day. And so I called in to defend our position here in Jersey City. And I thought that, you know, the host, Bill Spadia, his position was way off. And so I wanted to be clear about why we made the decision that we made and how it's going to impact Jersey City going forward.
A lot of other mayors fell in behind you on your reasoning for forbidding off-duty cops with the threat of termination for consuming legal marijuana off-duty because of how long it stays in the blood system. Mayor Davis, an ex-cop, by the way, agreed with you. Santos and Carney, Turner and Weehawken.
Turner and Weehawken,
the
Kazmark
sheriff
in Woodland Park, the council in Newark, and the list is growing. So,
Sheriff
the reason that
Mastronardi
they're
in Ocean County.
yeah, yeah. The reason that they're engaging is because what we said was reasonable and pragmatic. And I think anybody who's in an executive position would say that this makes sense, regardless of your view on cannabis legalization. I would say that there has been no mayor or city that's been a bigger advocate for legalization than Jersey City and myself. We have more applications coming through here than any place in New Jersey. We've been proactive on it. We've been supportive of it and vocal. But you also have to set up responsible guardrails to protect the community in certain professions, and employers should have that discretion. New Jersey is the only state in the country that didn't set up those guardrails, particularly around law enforcement. So Jersey City's position was that we were going to be clear to our police officers that they will face repercussions up to termination if they test positive, and they could expect that we will pursue it. And if they want to test us, more than welcome to. But that's where we wanted everybody to understand that we're going to be coming from.
We legalized marijuana, I think, about 18 months ago. Why wasn't this weeded out 18 months ago? Why did this become an issue? Because of you. You're the first one that I know brought this to the attention of the public.
Look, I think that most people weren't thinking about it. I mean, hundreds of bills go through the legislature in Trenton, and there's nobody that's reading every single one of them. Unfortunately, our state senators and state assembly members didn't catch this or wasn't vocal on it. But when the Attorney General wrote a memo that clarified the position that cannabis was a permitted off-duty for law enforcement, which was different than every other state, it provoked a response from me and some other mayors. So it was the Attorney General that brought it to light, and then we went from there.
Well, it's still classified as a Schedule I narcotic federally.
Yeah.
Which explains why a
So
lot of
that's
the dispensaries can't use a credit card. They probably cannot get banking yet because it's still a federal Schedule I. Is there any movement in D.C. to change that?
Look, I think it should be changed, and I think there is advocacy, but there hasn't been the appetite to do it broadly from the House, Senate, and President's standpoint. But look, the bigger concern with law enforcement is that it is different than alcohol, whereas you cannot test and know immediately if somebody's intoxicated on duty. So somebody can test positive if they, for example, had a gummy an hour before they got on duty, while on duty, or a week ago. And it's just going to take one incident where there's a weapon discharged or a car accident and somebody tests positive for cannabis, and it's unclear on when that cannabis was consumed. And a lot of questions are going to happen around judgment, a lot of questions around ATF and federal guidelines with regards to Schedule I drugs, and a lot of litigation will follow. And ultimately, the biggest thing beyond the monetary impact of litigation is trust between the community and law enforcement will be jeopardized. And so those are the reasons why we decided not to allow it. I think we're on the right side of this, and I think ultimately New Jersey is going to revisit it and change it.
Well, this needs to be weeded out. Unfortunately, Mayor, we're out of time. I didn't get to any of the other topics. That'll be for another day. I want to thank you for taking the time, Mayor. You're watching Meeting with the Mayor. I'm Pat O Melia. Good night.